I'll get down to what this story is because coincidentally, even though I've it's kind of a coincidence. The first North American stork has been taken off the endangered list, and what a coincidence! This movie begins with storks. So let's get down to it.
But anyway, but before we could do that, Jordan, since Julia will be here for a short while, do you want to give us with your thoughts with the vintage Dumbo? I mean, the first flick we saw together was Tim Burton's adaptation.
Sure.
Wait, you saw Tim Burton's, then I saw 1941. I mean, was there something?
No, not that. Jordan, before we were doing these meetings, Julia and I hang out to watch flicks together, and that was the one that we first started off with.
I think it was our very first movie that we saw together.
Okay, nice.
Was the adaptation, but I love the old one. I've seen the old one like all through my childhood, and I think it's very nostalgic for me just because it's one of the classics that we always watched. And I love it's just like classic Disney to me.
Yeah, it is.
And watching it as an adult though, I realized how much I don't think I realized how sad it was when I was younger. And now I realize like how sad it is. And now we know people who have babies, and we know, nieces and nephews, and now
why my mom doesn't want to watch the movie anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, I don't think I realized how sad this was when I was little. But now as a grown-up, I realize that it's pretty sad. But it's a very good movie and very nostalgic for my childhood.
Yeah. All right, so.
I know, right? Now it's like a red-nosed reindeer of its time.
Yeah, it's actually written. What my thoughts on this are written right here. So this guy right here, Dumbo spoke to me as a kid. I was Dumbo, and I couldn't put it in words very well. And to me, Pink Elephants was super awesome. A surreal, trippy fantasy that staggers the imagination to one that never ever drinks alcoholic beverages at all. Yeah. As for Baby Mine, it's such a touching song. Little fact about Baby Mine, a person I tried to contact, Ruthie Thompson, she was instrumental in having Walt have the song be in the film. She died at age 111 in the summer of 2021. One of the last survivors of the
11?
Yes, one of the last survivors of the Disney Golden Age.
Wow.
And I'm just I really love it. I honestly think there's a lot of there's certain moments in this production that I feel are pretty funny to me, and obviously one of them is where Timothy and Dumbo mistake a tub of liquor for water. They think it's water, but then they get drunk off of it, and then it ends up to some pretty hilarious stuff. And
it's called contamination.
Yeah, hallucination and up to Pink Elephants, and then finally, I seem to enjoy the art style of the film. It's not like a degree of sophistication that they have with the other ones, but
it's mostly caricatures.
Yeah, I enjoy the art style, and it seemed to work well on a VHS tape, and considering how I'm an adult, I seem to relate to Dumbo, and it's almost like your Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer type story, but it's in a circus.
Yeah.
Well, it's a barbaric kind of circus, which given from the perspective of a modern day viewer like myself, I can see.
I didn't think it was so much like barbaric. It was like the kind of gritty perspectives that they were even showing in the animated flick.
Oh, gritty! Oh man, because
I've heard of modern Cirque, like Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil, yeah, that's some great stuff. I did invite my friend Eric Goldberg from Disney to try to be on this call, since he considers this is like his favorite Disney film, but he was like, nope, I'm still swamped, but with the obligations that I have, and I'm figuring he still has to work on that little mystery project that that Disney has going. So I'll have to wait for an opening.
Yeah, it must be pretty early in the process if it's still a mystery.
Dumbo is pretty magnificent, and not only is this the not only does Cliff Edwards return voicing one of the crows, Danny to be specific, but also marked the Disney debut of Sterling Holloway, an actor who would voice a ton of characters throughout his long association with the studio, including creating the voice for Winnie the Pooh. Sterling Holloway plays the stork that gives Mrs. Jumbo baby Dumbo.
Oh.
And Mrs. Jumbo has only like one line in this film, Jumbo Jr. There's only one line. The rest of the line, she doesn't even speak. The rest of the film, she doesn't even speak.
Yeah, maybe because they weren't supposed to in their adaptation.
No. I just know anime films through reference of what I'm doing here, but I'm giving you my thoughts. So what are your thoughts, Sarah? Still classic, or do you hate this?
I have 1 minute. It's
Yeah, it's a pretty good classic. I mean, it's kind of like that. It's a it doesn't it seems to be like a classical masterpiece these days because like I said, we're covering like 100-year history of the studios. I mean, some of the projects that gone so old, it's like culturally obsolete these days.
Yeah, I can understand why how Disney would feel that way. So I just wanted to get Sarah's thoughts out of the way. Our thoughts, your thoughts, Sarah's thoughts, my thoughts, all that stuff. So it looks like it's 10 minutes up, but time for you to do whatever.
Yes, I have to go. I'm so sorry I didn't get to hear your thoughts, but thank you for letting me join, even though it was for just a short while.
Okay.
I will talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you.
All
right.
Okay.
Now let's get down nitty gritty with the story of how this film came to be.
Right.
Right.
It's yourself.
With the studio in debt after the complex misfires of both Pinocchio and Fantasia, the studio had to rush a new feature into production. What Walt Disney ended up finding was a story in a slim children's book called Dumbo, about a young circus elephant with big ears who was the outcast and misfit of society, who proves his worth once he finds he can use his ears to fly, and do loop-de-loops or swoops, or buzz the tower. Walt loved how the idea was so simple, and decided he would use it as the basis for his next film. Also, Dumbo didn't require expensive effects, unlike Bambi, which was already exiting pre-production. Adapting the book was Joe Grant, head of the model department, and Dick Humer. Gone with the Wind may be another reason why Pinocchio and Fantasia didn't do so well. Everyone was seeing Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, I thought another another major issue was like acting like
War in Europe.
like
that's
like other countries. I mean, Fantasia would have worked in like Europe for being artsy the continent.
I gotcha. So this was bargain bin compared to the other features and would not require excessive story emphasis like the other films. Boy, did they crank this film out fast. Also at the time, Walt was also working on The Reluctant Dragon, which was a combo live action and animation feature that also served as the behind-the-scenes look at how Disney made live action. Sneak peeks of Dumbo and Bambi would be put in. And the controversial crows, it was the least of Disney's worries. As in 1941...
Yeah, there's no reference in your book because it's a pretty end-up stuff there.
Yeah, the barbaric circus was about, then Dumbo was about to become real. Walt's perfect world in 1941 was about to come down. Since the push to features and the move to Burbank, things were brewing that would set these events in motion. During production of Fantasia, Roy Disney interfered with his brother's plans for the first time, halting new hires at the studio. Also, given the studio's compounding debt, Roy considered layoffs. Also, salary reductions to cut costs, unaware Walt had raised salaries. Walt was also known for being a guy who gave out such generous bonuses to animators who did pretty well at their job. He wanted to create a workers' paradise, but it wasn't turning out to be much of a paradise. Donald Duck's voice, Clarence Nash, was denied a raise, and Pinto Colvig, who played Goofy, complained he was underpaid. A story man was fired during a conference because of wanting to break for lunch. Still, other incidents happened, and some employees felt distant to Walt, complaining about parentalism and manipulation. Walt couldn't be argued with. He never gave them much credit either, even though he acknowledged his team. The employees down below the animators, in between and cleanup people, earned less than the animators, and Gracious knows what it was like for the ladies in the ink and paint department, one of the only areas they could work in at that time. Still, other complaints
Yeah, the
about
studio was egalitarian at best. I mean, the only reason they kept the women at the coloring sessions was because they got pay them less.
Still, other complaints about pay followed. People on the lower rungs of the ladder were now considering unionization. Art Babbitt, one of Disney's top animators, was the head of the Cartoonists Federation. A guy named Herbert Sorrell incorporated him into the Screen Cartoonists Guild, or Animation Guild as it is known today. Walt disapproved of unions, and Walt Disney told Art to stand down, but Art said, "If I can't have my own way, if someone tries to tell me to do something, I will just do the opposite, and if necessary, I will close down this studio." Legal complexities followed, and as Walt forbade employees to engage in union activity on February the 6th, 1941, even as 2 3-hour speeches to his employees seemed to encourage such. Walt attempted to douse the flames by cutting salaries for high-paid employees, but that didn't seem to work. In fact, this concept of lower people getting underpaid, it was actually worked into Dumbo. The clowns were at the low end of the circus people, and when they're singing, "We're gonna hit the big boss for a raise," it's an analogy to Walt Disney and how the lower people wanted more credit for great ideas. It was as if they knew they knew that people in the story film, they knew that they were going to be going after for Walt. Nevertheless, after Walt fired 20 union animators in an attempt to squash a union revolt, and after Art Babbitt himself was also terminated for union activities, on May the 27th, 1941, Art Babbitt and the Screen Cartoonists Guild voted to go on strike outside the Disney studio the next day, ultimately going on strike 2 days later instead. May the 29th, 1941 was quite the morning. Picketers crowded the studio gates, loudspeakers blasting music and messages at employees going through, and cars were fronted up all the way along Buena Vista Street.
Yeah, talk about killing the elephant in the room.
One of these picket signs depicted a caricature of Walt as a devious snake. It wasn't just Disney employees that were on strike. Employees from other studios were in on it as well. Warner Brothers, Termite Terrace, MGM, Fleischer Brothers, Walter Lantz, anyone who worked in animation in Hollywood back then was striking. Art Babbitt, according to a story, saw Walt Disney driving up to the studio and then grabbed a megaphone and said, "Walt Disney, you should be ashamed of yourself." He even said to the crowd, "There he is, man who believes in brotherhood for everyone but himself." After Walt Disney heard Art make that nasty statement about him and the crowd cheering because of it, Walt Disney got out of his car, took after Babbitt, and potentially gang tackled him. After this little tirade, one former employee wrote to Walt, recalling the good old days when they were a big, happy family. Then working for a personal gain took away that. So Walt's utopia was now shattered. Some of the people he trusted had now turned against him. In fact, he would later call the employees that had turned against him communists. This communist accusation would later play a big role in post-war American entertainment. Despite this, the top animators, the 9 old men, among others, still remained loyal to Walt. And even as these union troubles exacerbated, Disney still needed to finish Dumbo and get Bambi moving along. Yet some lab technicians at Technicolor refused to process Disney film until he recognized these guilds. Being cornered on all sides by big union officials, Walt didn't have much of a choice. So on July the 30th, 1941, he reached a settlement with the union, and inevitable layoffs would soon begin. The studio, except for the people working on Dumbo and the Mickey Mouse comic strip, shut down on August the 18th, 1941, and reopened September 16th, 1941, 50 years before I was born. To the day, a postponement of feature production was put in place except for Dumbo, Bambi, and a feature about Wind in the Willows. Inevitably, it was back to shorts. Departments and the films were shelved and disbanded. The number of employees at Disney was cut by 50%. Some of the animators.
Jordan, I think this is supposed to be a kind of detailed stuff after the Bambi thing. I mean, what about the initial reception of Dumbo?
Oh, I'm getting to that. Dumbo premiered in New York in October 1941 and received rave reviews. On a budget of $950,000, it received a little more than $1.3 million at the box office. Walt continued production on Bambi, but by now, the Mouse House had fallen for the first time. So,
Okay, so yeah, I was just looking at that, brief behind the scenes stuff on the plus. I mean, yeah, it seems kind of ironic that the old team that left Walt behind was the one that gave them the surplus need for the studio to survive.
well, one of them that left the studio, they ended up starting a studio called UPA Studios, creator of the modern look for cartoons. General Gerald McBoing, Mr. Magoo, those type of cartoons.
Yeah,
UPA Studios were behind them.
Yeah, they also mentioned how the 9 old men, continue on with like the progressionism, like bringing realism into animation.
Yep. So
They also been around the 1940s, where many other animators like Warner Brothers, against against the progressivism, like going back to like the classical gag roots. I mean, Tex Avery was definitely among the first to do so.
yeah. So Art Babbitt eventually returned to the studio and got fired once again. So everyone in the studio now was terrified of Walt, seemed to secretly hate him. Though even though Art Babbitt returned to the studio, got fired again, Babbitt would eventually play a role later on in our story in setting the gears in motion that would eventually get people talking about animation again in 1988.
I want to save that info for later. So.
Yep. Next week, the Golden Age ends, a world war begins, and a special guest will appear to tell us about Bambi, hopefully.
Yeah, anyway, nice seeing you guys tonight. So, need to go get dinner, okay? Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Okay, later.
Later, bye.